I'm just saying, maybe we should jazz it up a bit.
Rob, our customer interactions are as jazzy as they need to be. Plus, I'm afraid somebody's going to get hurt.
We can wear helmets if you insist.
And what about the customers?
I'm pretty sure the explosion won't reach that far.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, adrenaline-pumping thrillers, heartwarming dramas, and everything in between. Rob, you and I have a lot of overlapping shifts at the store. Is that right? Yeah?
Almost every day.
Almost, it does. You know how sometimes you see me expertly handling customer questions or deftly stocking the shelves?
Sometimes.
Well, the truth is that's not always me.
No way.
Yeah, more often than not, it's my stunt double. I've enlisted a professional to handle the more action-packed aspects of the day-to-day duties here at Rewind Video. And
it seems like something we should be talking to HR about.
Well, yeah. I slide him a little cash under the table, but
you get the paycheck. That's the important thing.
Yeah. Yes. We're literally surrounded by countless films where stunt performers make death-defying acts seem easy. So why wouldn't I want one of these experts to take some of the pressure off of me and help me perform to the best of my abilities?
Good point.
Yeah.
It's not really showing in your work, but I mean, I like where your head's at.
Yeah. Well, you'll be glad to know that I've used the extra time that my stunt double has afforded me to prepare for our next set of additions to the staff recommendation shelf. As always, you and I are in charge of curating the movies that appear on the shelf, and each time we rotate in new movies, we adhere to a theme. This week's theme is stunts.
I'm okay.
Good. Glad you survived that one. It looked dangerous.
Yeah, it did. I've been trained.
Well, this is another case of a theme that seems to have a lot of movies that would be eligible for discussion.
Almost every movie, I think.
Right? There's
technically.
all over the place.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Was this mine or yours?
Yours.
This is mine.
Yeah, this is your choice.
Yeah. Stunts are fun to watch.
Yes, of course. Yeah, people putting themselves in danger is generally fun.
In your definition, what makes for a good stunt?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of good things about a stunt. I guess it just sometimes it matters about like how cool it looks is one thing, how dangerous it seems.
Yeah.
And of course, the storytelling aspect is always huge.
I think on one end of the spectrum, we've got the Tom Cruise riding a motorcycle off a mountain stunts. And we have the more run-of-the-mill, almost imperceptible stunts that just keep the movie going. I don't know. I think that for me, a great stunt is one where I can't figure out how this person is still alive.
Yeah.
And I don't see the cut or whatever movie magic occurs in order to swap out the actor for the stunt double.
Well, I mean, I was actually thinking about that, putting this together, because back in the day, it was very hard to tell, who the stuntman was in a scene, because we didn't have high-definition televisions, and if you watched a movie in a theater, you can't rewind it and stuff.
Right.
And so it wasn't as obvious. Nowadays, on a big screen TV at your house, you're sitting 2 feet away, it's in high definition, and I feel like you can really tell nowadays. If you really look for it, which you kind of have to train yourself not to now.
Yeah. I'm always a fan of when stunts blend with visual effects in a pretty magical way. And I think we've got some movies tonight, including one of yours, where some gruesome special effects and makeup and things like that blend with the stunt work in a way that just amplifies what you're seeing on screen.
Absolutely.
There's another topic that comes up in one of your movies again that I did want to broach before we got into our picks, and it's the subject of should stunt work be awarded an Academy Award? Should there be a category at the Academy Awards for stunt work.
It seems kind of crazy that we're even having this discussion.
Yeah.
It's beyond me why they don't have an Academy Award.
I can't figure it out either. The only thing that I can come up with is, does Hollywood want to glorify the things that are truly dangerous about movie making? But, I mean, it's such an impressive part of filmmaking.
And it seems like, and it's definitely on its way out to some degree because of CGI and things like that. I don't think we'll ever get to a world where it's not useful, because things just look better when people are putting themselves in real danger, or at least like a real person is putting themselves in what seems like danger.
Absolutely. You know, I think that we're in a phase now where CG is playing a different role than it did in the late 90s and early 2000s, where filmmakers were doing whatever they could to put just bombastic spectacle level CG in movies. And now I think you still see that, but you also have CG playing a role where it's in the background, subtle things that, you know, like maybe it's just a backdrop in a scene that CG.
It's used for everything. I mean, there's any I mean, you look at a movie that can, like Fury Road or something, where the practical effects are really what makes that movie stand out. But it's loaded with CG.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything, even like a movie that doesn't have stunts in it, is going to be loaded with CG. That's just the way they use it now. But the way stunts interact with, you know, having a real stunt happen, even in like a Fast and Furious movie, you can tell, like, when there's a real car on the road driving really fast, there's a difference, you know, and you can see the scenes where it's like, well, that car didn't really do that, and it's not as good.
I agree.
You know,
I agree. Well, I hope that the Academy Awards take note, especially with one of the movies we're going to talk about tonight, calling attention to this.
I think they're probably listening, and so the Rewind Video crew is here to tell you, give them an award.
Absolutely. If you're going to reward sound mixing, let's give it to the stunt guys too.
Give it to everybody. Everybody should.
Why
have
not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, why don't you get us started with your first pick?
Okay, I'm going to start us off strong. I'm going to choose the movie The Fall Guy from 2024.
What a treat.
This is filed under Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Love it.
Back of the box. Fresh off an almost career-ending accident, stuntman Colt Seavers has to track down a missing movie star, solve a conspiracy, and try to win back the love of his life while still doing his day job. Tagline, Fall Hard.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
B plus?
But yeah, I think it's called The Fall Guy. You have the movie The Fall in there a lot. It works, but at the same time, I don't know.
Could be better.
I don't love it.
I don't love it either.
This is David Leitch's romantic action comedy starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. Leitch is a former stuntman.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He worked his way up to stunt coordinator, and then eventually he was like a second unit director for a bunch of action movies. The first movie that he directed was John Wick, which he co-directed with Chad Stahelski.
Who was a stunt guy.
Who was a stunt guy himself, too. And I guess they had worked together on a lot of these movies. But for some reason, Leitch wasn't given a directing credit by the DGA. And I'm not really familiar with their rules or what exactly happened here, because there wasn't a conflict. Both of these guys acknowledged that they co-directed this movie. It doesn't seem like the studio had any problem with it. I think the DGA, especially at that point, was just very reluctant to give a dual directing credit.
That's weird, because you got Lord Miller. And
I think that's really changed in the last few years.
Coen Brothers.
The Coen Brothers, that's one of the reasons that I forget who. Only one of them is a director on those movies.
Oh, really?
Because I think the DGA was like, you got to pick one. And they were like, no, we're both directing. And the DGA was like, nope, sorry. So somewhere along the line, they loosen it up a bit, because it seems like there's a lot of co-directing these days.
Yeah, I agree.
So then Leitch went on to do Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, Hobbs and Shaw, and Bullet Train.
Oh, wow.
So he's done a bunch of very action heavy movies.
Yeah.
Stunt heavy, if you will. So this is a very simple and straightforward story. It's not a movie with a lot of big ideas necessarily. It's just kind of an action hangout movie that's like all about vibes and stunts.
Yeah.
Everything in the movie is just to facilitate these big action set pieces or to bring Gosling and Blunt together into the same space.
Yeah.
And their chemistry really is like kind of what you can only get from like two movie stars, and you feel that on the screen.
So I almost think you're not giving what this movie is trying to do enough credit, because it works as an action movie, works as a hangout film. Mm-hmm. It definitely works as a rom-com.
Yeah.
The comedy I thought was pitch perfect. It was never too much.
I think Gosling is just super talented comedically.
I mean, you're hitting on something that I was eager to say, which is to the directors in the world, to audiences in the world, we are paying attention to the wrong Ryan. Ryan Reynolds gets all this credit for being hilarious and great and whatever.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling is the better actor. He's better at everything. I'd rather see him in an action movie. I'd rather see him in a comedy. I'd rather see him in a rom. All of it.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling is fucking great.
Like if Ryan Reynolds had been in this movie, it would have been obnoxious.
It would have been obnoxious.
There's a lot of guys where like this part also would have been like too cute. You know, and it wouldn't have been as funny. It would have just been like cute, which wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But you got to hand it to Leach too. The comedy beats work in this movie.
Oh, they so very much do.
It's not just Gosling doing all the work.
Yeah.
Like, the comedy beats do work. But their relationship is very relatable too. You know, it's not a wacky romantic comedy relationship. You know, like. Sure, they previously broke up because one of them fell off a building and broke their back in the aftermath of that. But otherwise, they're dealing with like fairly ordinary relationship stuff. And like they're just two people who really like each other, but broke up because like life got in the way. And then now they might get back together. That's the story.
That's it.
And so like it's the world around them that's going crazy, not them doing it. It's not like the romantic comedy stuff where it's like he's doing something ridiculous, you know, just to make an ass out of himself. I mean, there's a little bit of karaoke maybe, but
right.
the soundtrack is out of this world.
Oh, I agree.
Out of this world. Bangers from beginning to end. The backbone of which is I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss.
Yes.
Which is a song that I didn't realize I loved as much as I did.
Yes.
Or that it was Kiss. Like it was...
Yeah, they play it throughout. It's great.
It's a part of the score. Like they weave it into, you know, parts of the themes and stuff. Kiss is one of those bands that I never have taken seriously.
Right. It
was before our time. And so like they were always kind of a joke, at least by the 90s. They were kind of like a parody of something. We just weren't really sure what. Right. But then you hear guys talk about Kiss from back in the 70s, and they were like, they were fucking awesome. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Were they really? But now I get it. I think I get it a little bit.
Yeah. I also love the AC/DC needle drop near the beginning. For sure. I mean, it's great.
We also get Journey and The Darkness and Phil Collins, which is fucking great.
Yeah.
And when the Miami Vice theme song kicked in, I gave the movie a standing ovation. I was like, this is just too good.
It's outstanding.
This movie was like, you know, it's a very recent release. Yeah. It should be out on streaming by the time people hear this episode.
Yep.
But it wasn't. It was not as successful as people thought it would be or thought it could be. You got two big movie stars coming off of Oscar nominations. It's got everything. It's got action, romance, comedy. So it's kind of hard to tell what happened here.
I agree.
I think my theory is at least part of the reason is that audiences have been so IP pilled that like we've been trained to ignore these movies. Like people are just like, what is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and this is technically an IP, but like it doesn't have any footprint. Like I'd never heard of it.
No.
Apparently it's a TV show.
Oh, really?
From the 80s, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's exactly right. So like people are like, I don't know, I've never heard of it before, so like I'm not going to pay attention.
Right.
You know. And also like the movie business is shooting themselves in the foot for a long time, you know, in a lot of different ways. But like the fact that people aren't in the habit of going to movies as much these days because of the strikes and what have you. But
right.
So there's a lot of reasons for that.
I think it was also a little bit tough from the marketing, and I'm including the trailers in this, to know exactly who this was for. I mean, I was very interested because I like Ryan Gosling, but I think I have some built-in skepticism of this type of movie, which is action, comedy, romance. Like that scale is tough to balance.
Yeah.
Fall Guy does it perfectly, but been burned in the past.
That's true. I think you're probably right about that. I think it was kind of, even somebody who was like, I'm definitely going to go see that.
Yeah.
It was hard to, like, if I had to explain it to somebody, I don't even know, like, what to tell them otherwise. It's great,
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, yeah, it's funny, it's romantic, and it's got stunts. It's like, okay, cool, I guess.
I mean, I remember when you saw it and you told me that it really does have something for everyone. Like, you can watch this with your partner, you can watch this with your parents, and that's so true. It reminded me almost of when we talked about Jerry Maguire and how there was a lot of discussion at the time, like, is this a sports movie? Is it a romance? And it just did a good job of having a little bit of something for everyone, just like Fall Guy does.
Yeah. This was an obvious pick for the theme, I think. This is a movie about a stuntman, directed by a stuntman doing stunts. We do get the Jackie Chan style post credits clip, or like during the credits clip of all the stunts. I think that's something we should have for every movie.
Why not?
I mean, any time a movie does that, I'm never upset about it. In comedies, especially, and action movies, where you can see like the behind the scenes action stuff. Like, I fucking love that shit.
Yes.
I think every movie should have some of that. So, as you can tell, big fan of this movie. Big fan of this movie. I think this is definitely in the running for a 5-star status one day.
Yes.
I don't give 5 stars on a first watch. I just don't do that. So I like to give things some time to marinate. But it's on my watch list, so I definitely have it at 4 stars right now, which is what 29% of Letterboxd users have it at. It's at 3.6 overall.
It's a little low.
It's a little low, but I actually have seen a lot of people not dig it. I've seen like people that I follow have given it like 2 stars and being like, this is kind of dumb. And so like, maybe it's not for everybody. Maybe it's just, but I think it's also one of those movies that will be appreciated, you know, in the future. Be like, oh wow, like that actually was like pretty good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a return to like the popcorn 90s movies, but it's still like pretty modern. I found a 4-star review from a Letterboxd user named Joe Cole. And it reads, at this point, I would vote for Ryan Gosling for president. I don't care that he's Canadian. So I recommend this movie to just about anybody, and it's going up on the shelf this week for the topic of stunts.
Fine pick. I was impressed when I watched this, and it just hit streaming, so definitely everyone will have access to this. But there was a featurette where they actually talked about the stunt doubles for Ryan Gosling in the movie, and he had 3 different guys. There was one guy that did the driving, one guy that did the fighting, one guy that did falls, and I think this movie maybe set some records with some of the stunts.
The cannon roll they claim to. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a similar record set in Fury Road.
Oh, really?
That, I don't know. I seem to remember that number being 12.5 or something, but I think it might have been a different kind of flip.
Yeah.
So,
but
I don't know.
I mean, it's truly a celebration of great stunt work and
movie making.
And movie making.
Just movies in general.
Absolutely. Well, I love that you picked this. I can't wait for more people to see it because it's just fun to talk about. I am going to take us, with my first pick, to 1993 with Cliffhanger from the High Altitude Heists section of the store. So, back of the box, a year after losing his friend in a tragic 4,000-foot fall, former Ranger Gabe Walker and his partner Hal are called to return to the same peak to rescue a group of stranded climbers, only to learn that the climbers are actually thieving hijackers who are looking for boxes full of money.
Die Hard on a Mountain.
Yeah. Tagline, the height of adventure.
No. No.
Yeah, that's a C- for me.
Yeah, it doesn't get across any of... Yeah.
Nope.
Like, imagine if you had a picture of Sylvester Stallone hanging off a mountain and it says the height of adventure. Like, what kind of movie is this?
I don't know. Well, you kind of nailed it with the Die Hard reference, because this arrived at a time when the Die Hard formula was being milked for all it's worth. In the 12 months prior to Cliffhanger's release, There were several Die Hard-ish movies, some of which we've actually covered on the podcast. So there's Passenger 57, Die Hard on a Plane. Under Siege, Die Hard on a Boat.
Fuck yeah.
Speed, Die Hard on a Bus came just a few years later.
It works every time.
The formula works.
It fucking works every time.
Yes. And all of those movies are great.
Yes.
So this the script was actually penned by future Goldeneye scribe Michael France, but it underwent several rewrites by Stallone himself. I mean, he's always kind of involved in the writing, and
that surprises me.
Does it?
Because, I mean, I was going to bring this up later. I guess I'll bring it up now. Stallone, he just like seems miscast. Like it was written for somebody else. Clearly, you always write these movies for Bruce Willis. But like the lines, like they're not appropriate for him to be giving. And generally when Stallone puts his stamp on a script or something, he like tailors it for himself a little bit better. And it's a little bit less clever. This guy's trying to be clever, and that doesn't work for Stallone whatsoever.
No.
Plus, like, Stallone doesn't really seem like a rock climber in any way, shape, or form. Like, literally
Definitely not.
Like, he doesn't look like in any way. I mean, Bruce Willis would have been fucking great in this.
Yeah.
He doesn't exactly have rock climber vibes either, but like he could pull it off.
He could have pulled it off.
And like these lines were written for Bruce Willis, and they're perfect Bruce Willis lines.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it feels a lot of the time like Stallone's reading lines for a guy who has a very different body than Stallone himself has, you know?
And I know you can be ripped and be a rock climber, but like, I have known a lot of rock climbers in my life. None of them look like Stallone.
Very different body.
Yeah, very different.
So Rennie Harlan directed this. He actually also directed Die Hard 2, but he had a few other big movies to his name from the time, such as Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Long Kiss Goodnight, Deep Blue Sea. Rennie Harlan is probably the right guy for this job. I mean, I think he did. I think he pulled it off. Much of Cliffhanger was filmed on location in the Italian Dolomites. They're kind of meant to stand in as the Rockies. However, Stallone, who is usually famous for doing all of his own stunts, relied on a stunt double for like 95% of this movie because he's afraid of heights and had a very hard... So he was on a soundstage in a lot of the scenes.
You could tell.
Yeah. But most of it is actually on location and high up in the mountains. There's some interesting anecdotes about Stallone's abrasiveness on set due to his reluctance to film these scenes during a time when he was notorious for not using stunt doubles. But the cast is pretty good here. So we've already talked about Stallone as Gabe Walker, but John Lithgow plays the villain, and he's great, even though he inexplicably plays this with a British accent, which I don't really understand.
He is on a fucking heater at this point of his career because right in a row he does Ricochet, Raising Cain, and this movie. And those are three fucking batshit performances right in a row.
Yes.
And like each one you're like, what the fuck is he trying to do? And like I don't know what he's doing in this movie.
No.
I can't stop watching it, but it is like what's this big snake movie? Anaconda with John Voight.
Yes.
I mean it's almost at that level of batshit.
He's channeling some John Voight or I guess Anaconda might have come out after this, so maybe John Voight was channeling Lithgow.
Yeah. Voight was like, I can do better.
I don't know what the fuck John Voight was doing in that movie, but that's a good comparison, though. We also get Michael Rooker, and Michael Rooker's always fun. This is a good time for Michael Rooker, but he was great to see in this. So why did I choose this movie? So there are two particularly noteworthy stunts in Cliffhanger. The first involves a daring rescue, literally to open the movie, where, you know, a woman is trying to traverse two peaks and she's on like a cable and Stallone needs to save her. He does not do that. Stallone's close-ups are shot on a soundstage, but the rest of this is actually thousands of feet off the ground, and they had managed to rig something so that, you're actually that high up.
Wow.
And it looks amazing. I mean, the scene was parodied in the otherwise awful Ace Ventura sequel, When Nature Calls. And in the commentary track for the movie, Stallone even mentions that the only problem with doing that scene was that it would be almost impossible to top later in the movie. And he says, I don't know if we ever did. I disagree with him because there's another stunt shortly thereafter where we see one of the villains taking a zip line between two planes. And that actually happened. That was apparently...
It looked real. I was like, I don't know. Is that...
They planned 2 takes. They were only able to get 1. And that was, I think, and still is, the most expensive stunt ever performed because it cost $1 million at the time just to do that. The stunt was performed by a guy named Simon Crane. And yeah, it earned him a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records.
He should have won an Oscar.
He should have won an Oscar. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the movie's action-packed, but those 2 stunts in particular are just jaw-dropping.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, each of them happen within the first 30 minutes of the movie.
I mean, there's so much great mountain cinematography here too. I mean, this movie's gorgeous.
Yeah, and pretty relentless. You know, it gets off to a quick start, but it doesn't let up. This is fun from start to finish. This was a commercial success upon its release, grossed $255 million worldwide. I mean, I think it's earned some staying power. Among the Die Hard on a Blank movies, this is definitely a top 5er.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah. Averages a 3.2 on Letterboxd, which is a little low in my opinion. 17% of users agree with our 4-star review of the movie. I did enjoy Jamel Bouyer's review, which said, all you need to know about this movie is that Stallone lifts a man into a stalactite and kills him. 5 stars, retroactive best picture.
That is kind of a ridiculous shot. It was like, there's no way. Like, maybe if it was the other way around, you could do that. But no way Stallone's that strong. I think there's a little bit of Stallone bias in that 3.2.
Yeah.
I think if you had a different actor that people liked better, it would be a little bit higher.
I think I agree with you.
But, this is a 90s banger.
Yeah, it is. It is. So if you haven't seen it lately, it's right here on the staff recommendation show.
Excellent. I'm going to keep us in the 90s, our favorite decade for movies.
Yes.
This is from 1991. The movie is Backdraft.
Oh, this one's good.
This is in the Getting Blazed section of the store. Here is the back of the box. Fireman brothers Brian and Stephen McCaffrey battle each other over past slights while trying to stop an arsonist with a diabolical agenda from torching Chicago. Tagline is, silently behind a door, it waits.
I'm not mad at that.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Because they don't hit it too hard in the movie, a little bit, but they try to go for a little bit for that, like, this is a living creature.
Yeah.
They hit it. There's a couple of scenes where they allude to it. They don't go quite as far as maybe they could have. Like this kind of alludes like it's a horror movie. The fire's out to get you, which I like. I like that.
Yeah.
So this is Ron Howard's firefighting thriller starring Kurt Russell, Billy Baldwin, Robert De Niro, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Donald Sutherland, and Scott Glenn.
What an all-star
cast. What a superstar 90s cast.
Yeah.
This is not the first firefighting movie we've had on the shelf.
Right.
Only The Brave was part of our Elements episode, but this is municipal firefighting. This is like something very different.
Smaller scale.
This is what we think of when we think of firemen.
Yes.
And this was also like, I think since the day it came out, this has been the definitive firefighting movie.
Yes.
There's really not another one that I can think of that anyone would like consider to be like the firefighting movie.
Agree.
Story-wise, this is a fairly standard boilerplate 90s thriller.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything new or interesting with the genre, except it's got like a lot of fire in it.
Right.
It's sort of 2 different movies attempting to coexist. You've got the story of the hotshot younger brother who grew up in the family of hero firefighters, and he's like struggling to live up to the legacy. And then you also have the story of a hotshot young fireman who's trying to prove himself to the lead investigator on this arson case they're working. And for me, like, those 2 stories don't really mesh in a way that totally works. It just something about it. Like, I'm like, oh, just pick one of these and go for it.
Right.
But what can I say? I love fire. And this movie has a lot of it.
It's fun to watch.
When they were making this movie in 90, 91, whenever, CGI was just starting to gain some traction. And Ron Howard was like, well, we have to like do some tests and see if like maybe we can use some CGI in here instead of real flames, so it's not as dangerous and we can save some money. And then like a few weeks before they start shooting, he gets the test back and it was like not good. Like it did not look good.
Right.
And he's like, all right, we're going to have to use real fire because otherwise it looks like shit. And I think the movie is so much better.
Oh, yeah.
So like using real fire, obviously really raises the stakes for the stunt team. You're still doing all the normal stunt stuff. You're falling into things, off of things. You're hanging off stuff. You're jumping through things. But now everything's on fire. And so you can burn yourself. You can, do a lot of damage. But also your working environment is very hot all the time. Yeah. And so like these guys
burning down.
So like everything about this is just dangerous. Yeah. And also people are getting lit on fire also. Yes. Which apparently they did with some sort of glue.
Oh,
I guess it's like super glue or like whatever kind of glue you smear it on yourself and you can light it on fire and it burns for like 2 or 3 minutes before you like notice the heat.
Oh, wow.
In case our customers are looking for some ideas.
Yes,
There is one scene in particular that Scott Glenn almost burned his nuts off.
Oh.
It's the scene where he's hanging off a ledge in the burning building and Kurt Russell's holding on to him. And those guys are really in the scene. And so like they were applying the glue onto his body. And I guess they got some into his crotch without realizing it.
Oh, wow.
And this is like the second or third take. And so they light him on fire. They start rolling cameras. And I guess he like yelled out the safety word or something. And so they come in and they put the fire out. And he had burned through like, I think like 3 or 4 pairs of fireproof pants and like 2 or 3 pairs of underwear, and it was like just in it, like the last pair was like singed black.
Oh my God.
Like the next layer was his nuts. So like it was like very close.
Yeah.
But the actors are in a lot of these stunts.
Yeah.
Baldwin and Russell and Glenn, they're fucking in these stunts. And they actually were added to the credits as members of the stunt team because the stunt coordinator was like, these guys are in here with the fire and shit. Like, they're part of the stunt team. So like these guys get credit for stunts.
Amazing.
And it looks really good. Like these guys are like jumping through flames and like doing real shit.
It had been a while since I had seen this, and I had forgotten that Ron Howard directed it. But B, fire is such an interesting thing because, it's obviously notoriously unpredictable.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the filmmakers in Hollywood are experts at manipulating fire in ways that we don't think it can be manipulated. But in order for this,
still fire.
It's still fire, and in order for this to work, it needs to appear as if it's out of control. Mm-hmm. And so that's an extra layer that I think makes this even more impressive and still fun to watch today. It does not feel like it's as old as it is.
No, I watched like a making of documentary about the stunts, and some of the shots, like you look at the building. While they're filming, you're like, how is any of this safe? Like, there's just flames pouring out of windows, and like inside the building, there's flames. I mean, there were scenes where it took them 10 to 15 minutes to light the flames. They would like, all right, start lighting the fires, and they would take them 10 to 15 minutes just to get lit. Then be like, okay, rolling. And it's like, how is this okay? So yeah, Backdraft gets a 3.2 on Letterboxd. I think that's about right. This is still a 3-star movie for me.
I agree.
It's got 5-star stunts, but like I said, it doesn't quite coalesce into like a real story. Like,
yeah,
I wish it was more about the mystery or something. Like I said, I wish they just kind of picked a lane and stayed in it. 33% of Letterboxd has this at 3 stars, including Erica, whose 3-star review says, hot guys doing hot guy stuff.
Excellent movie.
So yeah, this has some of the best fire stunt work you're ever going to see in a movie. So it definitely deserves a spot on the shelf for stunts.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked this. It's definitely one of those movies where you're like, how did they do this?
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild looking, and they did it, and nobody got hurt.
It's amazing.
Like, seriously.
Yeah. nuts were singed, but yeah.
Nuts were singed. Oxygen was cut off for a few people, but otherwise.
Well, fine pick. This was fun to go back to. I'm going to skip us ahead to another more recent movie from 2018. My second pick is The Night Comes for Us from the, I'm pretty sure they just killed that guy section of the store. Back of the box synopsis is brief because plot is brief in this movie. It goes like this. After sparing a girl's life during a massacre, an elite triad assassin is targeted by an onslaught of murderous gangsters. Tagline, in search of salvation, he'll make the city rain blood. Bad.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not good, but yeah, you have to give some leeway to these foreign produced movies because there's always a little bit of like translation that doesn't work.
I suppose so. Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. The Night Comes for Us is an Indonesian martial arts thriller released in 2018, directed by a guy named Timo Jajanto. The film stars Joe Taslim as Ito, a former triad enforcer who decides to protect a young girl. And that draws the ire of his former allies, setting off a series of brutal confrontations. So, I wanted a martial arts movie for our theme tonight. And we've brought The Raid to the table in the past. A lot of overlap here with The Raid in terms of cast and filmmakers and some of the stunt work. This is decidedly more brutal than The Raid.
Yeah, I was not quite expecting it.
Yeah.
I normally, when I watch a movie, I normally put it on before I go to bed, like at night, winding down my evening, watch a movie.
Sure.
I actually watched this with my morning coffee just because of circumstances. It's not something I normally do. And I got to say, this was the wrong movie to pick for that. I was not ready. I thought it was just going to be a martial arts movie. And, boy, this is really bloody and really gory. I'm not like against that. I'm just saying I wasn't quite ready for it.
I mean, I was going to mention this down the road a little bit, but I'll say it here. This might be the most violent movie I've ever seen.
It's pretty violent.
Yeah.
Pretty violent.
A lot of violence, a lot of gore. This was rated NC-17 strictly for violence, which I completely get.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's not totally realistic, you know?
No.
It's not like, it's not body horror type gore, but it's violent gore.
It is violent gore. It does, yeah. It's... The Raid movies are more just pure martial arts. Mm-hmm. This is, people getting things severed, and
it's very effects heavy.
Oh, very, yeah.
Whereas
very.
The Raid wasn't quite. You didn't see like the
the insides of people. This does a couple things that I don't love in martial arts movies, especially of this genre, where we see people enduring far more than a regular human body could ever endure. And there are a couple fight scenes where, we see, one guy with a whole slew of people coming at him, and all of those people just kind of like take their turn.
Yes.
Fighting him, which I know, you need to do for the sake of, a movie like this, but it still takes me out of it a little bit. Yeah. The director, Timo Jajanto, is known for his work in the horror genre, and I think that comes through. We see that in a lot of these fight sequences. But he wanted to push the boundaries of action filmmaking. He wanted to combine, martial arts choreography with, his background in horror films like Headshot and Macabre, which are two movies that he did before this. The cast is pretty good. Joe Taslim is pretty awesome as as Ito. Iko Uwais, who was in the Raid movies, plays Arian, Ito's former friend turned adversary. Julia Stell, also in the Raid movies, stands out as the operator. She's kind of this mysterious assassin who there's another movie in this series planned just for her. She's going to center around her. So hopefully we'll get another entry into this. So why did I choose this? Like I said, it's very violent, very gory, but the martial arts is amazing. I would say 90% of this is just like punching, kicking, shooting, bludgeoning, stabbing, slicing, throwing people through windows and stuff. It's light on plot, but the plot is definitely present. But we're here for the fighting, and the fighting is abundant.
I think there's too much plot.
Oh, really?
I think it's too complicated.
Yeah, I mean,
why do you need this little kid and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine with 95% fighting. But yeah, I mean, like I said, most of the characters endure more than a human being could ever endure to survive. But
That's kind of the hallmark of martial arts movies.
I agree. Yeah, you have to have that. And yeah, I think that much like the John Wick movies, which really kind of, in my opinion, represented a turning point for Western action films, a lot of the action here is shot exactly right. We get a lot of long takes. You see everything unfold, wide shots, and it makes the stunt work even more mind-boggling. There are several scenes where it's inevitable to think, like, how did they do that? How did that actor actually survive?
These guys these actors are doing their own stunts. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah,
there's no doubles.
That's
everybody's just trained in this.
They just got martial arts guys to be in the movie.
Yeah, one of the standout sequences is this apartment fight scene where Ito takes on multiple assailants in a pretty confined space. There is a shot in this fight which I had to rewind and watch several times. I don't understand how they did it. It's a fight taking place near a window, and a guy gets thrown out the window, and you just follow him down, and he hits a balcony, and then falls off the balcony.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how they did it.
He might have just done it.
He might have, yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the old Jackie Chan stuff, and you're like, how did he do that? It's like, well, no, he did it.
Yeah.
And they filmed it. That's, it wasn't a trick.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he just jumped off a building and landed on something. And,
right.
And like maybe that's what they did here.
I'd love to know, because it was incredible to watch. And yeah, there's a lot of practical effects here, real stunts, not a lot of CG. There's a lot of makeup, definitely, but...
and I think it seems like it was mostly makeup effects. There might have been some digital effects, but it seemed like it was mostly practical makeup stuff.
I agree, yeah. And I mean, I can't brace our customers enough for just how violent this is.
You didn't tell me.
That's true. Well, I didn't actually know. This was on my list. And yeah, I hadn't seen it before picking it for tonight. But yeah, the critical reception was fairly positive. Got a lot of acclaim for its action sequences and performances. This has definitely garnered a cult following since its release. Especially among action enthusiasts. It averages a 3.6 on Letterboxd. 30% of users aligned with my 4-star review. I'm going to cite Brian Holt's take on this, where he said, "The new wave of Indonesian, I'm pretty sure they actually killed that guy genre, is my favorite genre." And Brian, we have that section in the store.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Come to Rewind Video. You'll find a few other movies in that. On that shelf as well.
Yeah, this was a fun one. I like I said, not quite ready for it, but as long as you know what you're getting into. As long as you know what you're getting into.
Yeah,
this is a fun movie.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Okay, I'm going to take us back to the 80s, 1984. The movie is Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter.
Yes.
This is part of our fall collection. Back of the box. After the Crystal Lake massacres, Jason is pronounced dead and taken to the hospital morgue, where he is mysteriously revived, allowing his diabolical killing spree to continue at the camp where the gruesome slaughtering began. But this time, in addition to terrified teenagers, he meets a young boy named Tommy who is a special talent for horror masks and makeup, leading to a horrifying, bloody battle. Has Jason finally met his match?
I mean,
tagline, Jason's back, and this is the one you've been screaming for.
Well, it's doing what a tagline needs to do for a movie in this franchise.
Cut off the Jason's back part of it.
Yeah, Jason's back. Yeah.
You don't need that.
Yeah.
This is the one you've been screaming for. All right.
There you go.
It's slightly clever.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, it's all you need.
I'm in. Is this the final chapter, Rob?
This is the 4th installment of the Friday the 13th franchise, and despite the title, there have been 7 or 8 sequels, yes. Depending on how you count Freddy vs. Jason. And also there was a 2009 movie that was either a sequel or a reboot. I don't really know. I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's not good.
I'm not super familiar with the series.
Yeah,
to be honest.
of the big 4 horror movie franchises,
Yeah.
this one's the one that I paid attention to the least.
I've seen a few, but I'm not really sure which ones, bits and pieces. I have seen part 6. That one I actually really like. It's kind of like a parody of the horror slasher genre. Otherwise, not really.
You know, I think we probably have quite a few customers who fall into that camp. This is a great place to jump in because they recap the first 3 movies right at the beginning of this, and then we're back at Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
And this does a lot of things better than a lot of the other sequels. So this is a good entry.
I'll take your word for it. Mostly this series has a reputation as like the quintessential trashy, low-budget 80s slasher flick.
Yeah.
And that is what this series is. It's like, which has its place. I'm not like complaining about that, but it's not Halloween. It's not Texas Chainsaw. It doesn't have a certified classic in the franchise,
right,
like some of these. However, this final chapter is generally considered to be one of the better, or if not the best, of the Friday the 13ths.
I agree.
Only part 6, which is the one I was just talking about, that's the only one that has a higher letterboxd rating.
Oh, really?
Which is at 3.2. Final chapters at 3.1.
Okay.
And then parts 1 and 2 are both at 3, and then they kind of like fall off a cliff after that. But amongst the people I follow on Letterboxd, which I follow them because I think they have good taste.
Yeah,
I don't just follow random people generally. The average rating for this is 3.7. And so like the people that care about these movies seem to like this one.
Yeah.
However, if I'm being honest, I don't really like this movie very much.
Okay.
I don't know how you felt about it.
I thought it was... It's hard. I mean, I love the horror genre. I have a lot of respect for this franchise. Mm-hmm. I think that it is one of the best of the Friday the 13th movies. But yeah, as a movie that I like would decide to just throw in, no, it's low on that list. But I think it's good. I think it's a 3-star movie for me.
I think if I knew the series better or the mythology or I cared about like the story, maybe it would hit a little bit differently. But to me, it's kind of a below average slasher. I've seen it a couple times.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have very good kills. And I think it's just like overall kind of boring. But
yes.
Sometimes within a movie that doesn't quite work, there are things to like. And for me, this movie is stunts. Like sometimes it's performance or makeup effects or locations or whatever. This one has some pretty good stunts.
We definitely need to talk about the stunts. I do want to return to the performances.
Okay. So you like the performances.
I mean, Crispin Glover is batshit crazy.
He's good. He's always good because he is batshit crazy.
He's batshit crazy. And I mean, Corey Feldman. We get a young Corey Feldman in this, and you know, he is exactly right for that part.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, those are some good performances. I just don't really understand like why I care about what's going on or what even is really happening.
That is fair.
I think that's a big problem in this movie.
Yeah.
But the stunts in this movie, there are at least 2 and possibly 3 great-looking stunts.
Yeah.
And the first one that I'm not completely sure is a stunt is a scene that a character is running from Jason and they're in a house and Jason is outside, and the way he gets into the house is he throws a corpse through this giant window in the front room.
Right.
Now, I think it's possible they used a dummy, and I looked at this scene pretty closely. I think it was a person. I think it was a person getting vaulted through this window.
Yeah.
And if it is, it's a really good stunt.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good stunt. There's a chance it's a dummy, so I don't want to give it like 100% credit. It looks like a guy.
Yeah.
There's a second stunt where a stunt woman falls onto a car, and it's a fairly standard like falling onto the roof of a car. But the way it's shot, they shoot it from above, they show it in slow motion, and it just looks really good. Like you really get like the full stunt here.
Yeah.
And you get a great look at the stunt woman, and she hits the car, and like it looks like it fucking hurts. And it looks great. But the last one I want to talk about is it's another woman falling off a building stunt, but it might be one of the best falls I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
The character, it's a different character running away from Jason, and she makes the decision to escape. She's going to jump out this second-story window. and it's a closed second-story window. And so she jumps through this window, and the whole thing is shot from outside the house. And she jumps through the window onto a landing just outside the window, and then rolls and falls again off that landing onto the ground below. And it's all in one motion, and she lands perfectly on her back facing the house, and the whole thing is shown in one slow motion shot. And it simultaneously looks exactly how you would design it. Like if you were like, we're going to do this stunt, and this is exactly how we're going to do it, and also looks completely impossible. Yeah. Like I don't know how you could pull that off on purpose.
Yeah, it's
phenomenal.
It is phenomenal.
She had to land perfectly, like on the first jump through the window, and then contort herself in exactly the right way to fall a second time, and then lands perfectly on her back, exactly on the little like pad. It's clearly a stunt. You can see what she lands on. You know, it's a pad.
Yeah.
But like she landed right fucking on it, and I don't know, man. Like I've seen this movie twice, and both times I rewound that stunt like 3, 4, 5 times. I'm like, how is this possible?
It's fun to watch.
It's fun to. It's
really fun
great.
to watch. Yeah.
Maybe one of the best like stunts I've ever seen. I don't know. Like, I guess there might have been some luck involved. I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about stunts. Maybe it's way easier to do this than it seems.
Yeah.
But either way, man, it fucking rips. It looks great in this movie. It's fun to watch. I mean, if you can find it on YouTube, do that. Like, it looks fucking great.
Yeah. It's impressive. I mean, this movie brought back Tom Savini, who did a lot of the effects work, and I mean, his presence is felt much better than the previous entry and some of the later ones where he's not involved. But you know, he had nothing to do with this, and that stunt, and boy, it works.
It's so good. It's so good. So this is a movie that, in my opinion, is worth a watch primarily for the stunts.
Yeah.
Maybe only for the stunts, but I'm putting it up on the staff recommend shelf this week because I think these stunts are just phenomenal.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun to watch. So Ted White is the guy who played Jason in this. And every movie has a different guy playing Jason, but Ted White was a stuntman. Okay. And you can kind of tell. You can tell that the guy behind the mask in this is ready for some fucking action. It's not like they're not holding Jason back from doing some like bursting through things, and
right.
I think that makes a difference. It looks good. So.
The way they showcase the stunts, I assume the director's got to be a former stunt person, but I couldn't find anything that said that he was or not.
Yeah.
So I think he was just like, this looks great. I'm gonna shoot it in slow motion.
Yeah. Well, I was glad to. This has probably been 20 years since I've seen this, but it was fun to go back to. Crispin Glover is just a wacky man.
Yeah, I mean, hey, this Halloween season, if you're throwing on a slasher, a lot of times it doesn't matter if it's good or not. You know, this is one to throw in the rotation.
I agree. Well, fun pick. I'm going to round us out with a movie that I think for this theme has a lot in common with your first pick. And my final movie is Death Proof from 2007. Plucked from you picked the wrong ladies to fuck with section of the store. Back of the box here. 2 separate sets of voluptuous women are stalked at different times by a scarred stuntman who uses his death-proof cars to execute his murderous plans. Tagline: a crash course in revenge.
Awesome.
Which is great.
That's fucking great.
That's
love it.
What a tagline needs to do. So this is an action thriller directed by Quentin Tarantino. Film stars Kurt Russell as stuntman Mike, a sociopathic stunt driver who targets and terrorizes groups of women with his crazy car. So this was produced as a double feature. It was part of the Grindhouse double feature, which was a collaboration between Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. Definitely, both films are a love letter to the exploitation Grindhouse cinema of the 70s, complete with, a deliberately retro aesthetic.
Did you get to experience the Grindhouse thing in the theaters?
I did.
It was fucking great.
Oh,
I did it twice,
was
two different
awesome.
theaters, and it was wild.
It was such a cool
Yeah.
experiment, and I loved it. I think that one of the most remarkable aspects of Death Proof is its commitment to practical effects and authentic stunt work. I mean, Tarantino, known for meticulous attention to detail.
And everything he shoots is in camera. He's never done a CGI shot.
No. Yeah. I mean, he insisted on real stunts here. It shows. I mean, it gives this movie a feel that is wholly unique. But I mean, the fact that it's part of that, paying homage to the Grindhouse genre, results in some interesting filmmaking decisions, which I really like. You know, I mean, when we talked about Kill Bill, I was critical of some of the little idiosyncratic things that Tarantino does to make his movies feel of a certain era, but it totally works here because it's supposed to feel like it's from that time.
Everything he does is his take on this genre that he loves or this movie that he loves, and he's like, well, this is my version of it.
Yeah.
But this is like the most blatant the most blatant of those.
Yeah.
Obviously because it's part of a project that was like specifically designed to do that. But yeah,
Yes.
it's like here it's like it's part of it. You know, like I hear what you're saying. Like there's a little bit of like I don't know, artifice to some of his movies where it's like this is supposed to be a kung fu movie and you know,
right.
which grinds your gears a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But here it's like, well, that's very much the idea, and so if you don't like it, like you don't like it. But
right.
This is more blatant about it.
It is more blatant, and it's done so well. I mean, like the fact that he like physically scratched the film to make it look damaged, and
skips some the film
mistakes with like editing and color grading. It all works, and I appreciate just how fully committed from start to finish.
It's kitschy.
Yeah, indeed. So Kurt Russell is Stuntman Mike. Zoe Bell, who's a real-life stunt woman, plays herself, performs all her own stunts. And then we also get Rosario Dawson, Tracy Thomas, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is in this. But yeah, why did I choose this? So the theme is stunts, and the stuntiness here is very, very present.
Yeah.
We've got a character named Stuntman Mike. We also have Zoe Bell, who, as mentioned, actual stunt woman. And
the other character, like they're actually stunt women in the movie. Like their characters are stunt women.
Yeah, they're playing the part of stunt women as stunt women. And yeah, you know, the practical effects. You need to be doing practical effects for a movie like this. And one of the most iconic sequences in the movie has Zoe Bell performing a stunt known as the ship's mast, where she clings to the hood of a car with only 2 seatbelts as support.
You say it's an iconic scene. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason Tarantino made this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Was like, I want to do that. I can't imagine there's any other, like he had to be like, the whole thing builds to that.
Oh, yeah. And it's mind-boggling to watch. I mean,
and it was just like you just do it. You know, there's not a trick. Like they just do it.
Yeah, you know,
like, I'm sure they weren't using like actual belts, and I'm sure I'm pretty sure she was strapped like to the hood.
Yeah,
but otherwise she's on the hood of a car and they're driving really fast. That's the stunt.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch because you know you're used to stunts being invisible. I mean, they're supposed to be impressive, but like they're supposed to just blend in. And here you're seeing them decide intentionally to do a stunt, and you see it unfold, and it's just a lot of fun to watch.
It's also like, let's not forget that the driver is a very important part of these stunts.
Oh my gosh!
You know, especially like if you think about great stunts, like the stunt in the Indiana Jones movie where he's under the truck.
Yes.
Right? You think like, that the stuntman on the bottom is, you know, crazy, right? But the guy driving the truck, if he goes a couple inches offline, the guy underneath is dead, right?
Dead.
And so like that person has to be an amazing driver.
Yes.
And you think about something like in Death Proof, whoever's driving that car is like driving their fucking ass off.
Oh yeah.
A, to make it look cool, and B, to make sure that nobody dies.
Not to mention, they're driving this car with a woman strapped to the front that you have to look past through the windshield in order to drive. So, I mean,
so even like there's stunt people you don't even like think about in the middle doing stunts that
right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy. And I mean, there's some just horrific crashes in this movie, and those were real, like they actually crashed these vehicles, and holy hell, it's nuts to watch. But yeah, a lot of long takes here, minimal cuts. It's shot well for what it's trying to do, and I love that about it. So this actually received mixed reviews upon its release. Some critics liked the action sequences and stunt work. Others found the pacing and structure uneven. I would agree. The pacing is, and just the narrative itself is a little unusual. But when you get to the end, you understand the purpose of everything.
Yeah,
and
Tarantino is very purposeful with stuff like pacing and stuff. Like this was not an accident that it's paced like this.
Definitely a cult following with this one. I don't know that a lot of people would claim it's Tarantino's best, but it's certainly great at exactly what it's trying to do. This averages a 3.6 on Letterboxd. 25% of users aligned with my 4-star review. I couldn't help but to laugh at the user Kate, who called attention to something that I also noticed while rewatching this. She said, Sally Mankey in the editing room. Oh my God. There's just so many fucking shots of feet.
There is a lot. There's more feet in this than
so much
any
feet.
of his other movies.
Oh my God. There's so many feet. So
a lot of butts too.
A lot of butts. A lot of feet.
A lot of butts. Again, part of the motif.
It is. Yeah. That's what you get with Tarantino. So this is going on shelf as my final pick.
Great choice.
And with that, we did it. We knocked out another staff recommendation shelf with some excellent selections. We did it without CGI or stunt doubles in this case. Didn't even need a fight choreographer. But for the theme of stunts, the movies we chose are Fall Guy, Cliffhanger, Backdraft, The Night Comes for Us, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, and Death Proof.
Find us on the internet at rewindvideopod.com. Please don't forget to subscribe, share, like, review, all those things.
Well, next time, we're tackling the wide world of media.
No comment.
That's going to be, it's newspapers, local news, national news, weather reports. It's all on the table.
The media.
The media. As usual, we'll have 6 films to recommend. In the meantime, feel free to hit us up for a movie to watch. We'll see you next time.
Be kind, recommend.